In this powerful motivational video, we're exposing the truth about fake people, hidden agendas, and how to unmask those pretending to care. If you've ever felt betrayed, manipulated, or drained by toxic relationships, this is your wake-up call. Learn how to spot the signs, protect your energy, and build unstoppable confidence. This is not just motivation, it's transformation. Watch till the end for life-changing mindset shifts you can start using today. When you really start paying attention, you'll notice that the world is full of people who can talk a good game. They'll look you in the eye, smile at the right moments, and tell you exactly what you want to hear. They'll say things like, "I'm always here for you," or "You can count on me." But the truth is, words are the easiest thing in the world to give. They cost nothing, require no effort, and can be delivered without the slightest intention of following through. The real test isn't in what people say, it's in what they do, especially when doing the right thing is inconvenient for them. You'll start to see that when someone truly cares, their actions won't just align with their words once or twice. They'll align consistently, over time, without you having to ask or beg. You've got to understand something. People who pretend to care will often use words as a shield. They know that most people take comfort in promises, in the reassurance that someone's got their back. But that's where the trap lies. If you rely only on what someone says, you can be led into believing in a version of them that doesn't actually exist. A person's true character is revealed in the moments when there's no audience, no praise, and nothing to gain. Do they still show up? Do they still make time? Do they still keep their word when no one else is watching? That's when you'll see who really cares. You've probably been in situations where someone made a promise, and in that moment, it felt sincere. You believed them. But then life got busy, priorities shifted, and suddenly that promise didn't matter anymore, at least not to them. And here's the thing, when someone truly cares, they don't let business become an excuse. They don't let life's distractions push you to the bottom of their list. Caring isn't a part-time role they take on when it's easy. It's something they live out through action, even when it costs them something. The people who fake care will often overcompensate with dramatic expressions. They'll tell you over and over how much you mean to them. But when the moment comes for them to prove it, they'll vanish, offer excuses, or change the subject. You've got to train yourself to stop being impressed by words and start being observant of patterns. A single act of kindness means little if it's followed by months of neglect. Real care is not occasional. It's not dependent on mood, convenience, or whether it benefits them in some way. It's steady. It's there when it's raining just as much as when the sun is out. And here's the hard truth. You'll lose people when you start holding them accountable to their actions instead of their words. Pretenders don't like being exposed. They thrive in relationships where they can say just enough to keep you believing without actually investing the effort to back it up. The moment you start evaluating them based on what they do, they'll either step up or they'll slowly fade away. And as much as it hurts to lose someone you thought cared, it's better to see the truth than to live in a lie that drains you. Think about this. Caring costs something. It costs time, effort, and sometimes sacrifice. That's why not everyone will truly care for you. It's much easier for people to pretend. But actions don't lie. A person who cares will pick up the phone when you need them, even if it's late. They'll remember the things you said mattered to you. They'll show up without being reminded. They'll listen without rushing you. They'll invest themselves in your growth, your healing, and your happiness without keeping score. If you want to unmask the people who only pretend to care, stop rewarding empty words. Don't get swept away by grand declarations that never manifest into reality. Observe. Notice the little things. How they behave when there's no advantage for them. Whether they make time for you when it's inconvenient. Whether they follow through without being reminded. People can fake words for a lifetime, but they can't fake consistent effort forever. Eventually, the mask slips. It's not about expecting perfection. Everyone fails sometimes. It's about recognizing patterns. Do they apologize when they drop the ball, or do they make excuses? Do they try to do better next time, or do they repeat the same behavior until you get used to it? Pretenders rely on your willingness to lower your standards over time. They bank on you valuing their presence so much that you stop demanding proof of their care. That's why your standards must remain high, and your focus must stay sharp. When you shift your attention from what people say to what they do, You give yourself a gift, the gift of clarity. You stop wasting years hoping someone will become the person they've been pretending to be. You free yourself from relationships built on illusions. And most importantly, you create space for the people who do care. The ones who prove it not with words, but with actions so consistent and genuine that you never have to question their intentions. Because in the end, caring is not a speech, it's a behavior. It's the small acts that add up, the follow-through that doesn't need to be begged for, the quiet moments where they show up simply because they wanna, not because they have something to gain. Once you understand that, the people pretending to care will stand out like shadows in the sunlight, and you'll finally see them for what they are. And when you do, you won't need to confront or argue. The truth will be obvious, and your life will be lighter without the weight of false promises holding you down. When someone pretends to care, they often do so because it benefits them more than it benefits you. They might put on the right words, the right tone, even the right facial expressions, but there's an emptiness behind it, a hollowness you can feel if you're paying attention. Real care is shown through consistent actions, not occasional displays when it's convenient or when there's an audience to impress. People who pretend to care often vanish when there's nothing in it for them, or they step back the moment your needs become inconvenient. They don't step up during your worst days, they disappear. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. You don't lose anything when these people step away. You gain clarity. Because fake care is a form of manipulation. It's designed to keep you in a state of gratitude for something that isn't real. They want the credit without the cost. They want the appearance of loyalty without the weight of responsibility. You learn to spot this when you stop listening solely to what people say and start observing what they do when no one is watching. The friend who always posts a heartfelt message for you on your birthday but ignores your calls when you're struggling isn't showing care, they're showing performance. The colleague who's always there to celebrate your wins but never shows up when the work gets tough isn't a teammate, they're an opportunist. And the family member who reminds you of all they've done for you, but only helped when it made them look good, is not acting out of love, they're acting out of self-interest. Once you stop being blinded by the surface-level gestures, you'll start seeing the patterns. How they always show up when it benefits them and fade away when it doesn't. You also have to pay attention to how they handle your vulnerability. Someone who truly cares will protect it. Someone who pretends will weaponize it. They'll remember your weak moments not to comfort you, but to use them as leverage later. They'll recall your fears, your mistakes, and your private pain at the exact moment it serves their agenda. This is why you cannot hand your trust to just anyone who offers a kind word. Care without integrity is just a mask. You'll notice that the mask starts to slip when you no longer give them the validation they seek. Suddenly, the warm tone gets cold. "I'm always here for you" becomes, "I've got my own problems." And you realize that they were never here for you. They were here for the feeling they got from playing the hero in your story. The most dangerous part of fake care is that it can lull you into complacency. You start thinking you're surrounded by people who have your back, when in reality, you're surrounded by people who are holding you back. They subtly keep you dependent, because your independence would mean their performance is no longer needed. And here's the brutal truth. Someone pretending to care is more dangerous than someone who openly opposes you, because at least with the latter, you know where you stand. Pretenders blur the lines. They keep you second-guessing yourself. They keep you giving more chances than you should. They keep you doubting your instincts. The only way to break free from this is to start valuing truth over comfort. It's easy to keep people around because it feels good to have them there, even if they're not real. But when you start measuring people by their actions, you'll be amazed at how small your circle becomes and how much stronger you feel within it. Real care is consistent, it's inconvenient, and it's not dependent on applause. Anything else is just an act, and once you see it as an act, you'll never be fooled by it again. When someone pretends to care, you don't confront them with words. You confront them with boundaries. You stop over-explaining, stop seeking their approval, and stop giving them the role of protector in your life. Because when the act no longer serves them, they'll leave. And that's exactly when you'll realize their departure wasn't a loss. It was the best form of protection you could have asked for. Sometimes the people who pretend to care about you are the ones who watch you the closest, not to support you but to measure your progress, to see if you're ahead of them, to check if you're slipping so they can feel better about themselves. They come with warm words and soft tones, but underneath is a quiet calculation. You have to look past the surface, past the smile, and into the patterns. Pay attention to what people do after they hear your good news. Do they celebrate with you wholeheartedly? Or does the conversation shift quickly back to them? Do they start giving subtle criticisms or backhanded compliments disguised as just being honest? That shift is your red flag. People who truly care don't compete with you in secret. They don't feel threatened by your wins. And they don't try to plant doubt when you're finally feeling confident in yourself. Watch for the little pauses, the hesitation in their praise, the way they seem slightly off when you're in a good place. Another thing to observe is how they react when you're struggling. Someone who's pretending to care will show up for your problems, not because they want to help you heal, but because your low moments make them feel stronger by comparison. It's easier for them to play the role of the concerned friend when you're not doing well, because then they're not in your shadow. They may offer help, but it often comes with conditions, or it's delivered in a way that reminds you how much you owe them. They keep the balance of power tilted so you never forget who saved you. The truth is, people who care want to see you stand on your own feet. People who pretend to care want you to stay dependent, because it keeps them in control. The test is simple. When something good happens to you, do they rush to share in your joy, or do they become quiet and distant? When something bad happens, are they genuinely helping, or are they feeding off the drama? You'll see it in the way they look at you, in the tone they use, in the speed at which they change the subject when the spotlight is on you. If you pay attention, their energy will betray them long before their words do. Pretenders are often excellent at masking themselves in public. They'll praise you in front of others, but it's the conversations behind closed doors that reveal the truth. Pay attention to what they say when no one is listening, when they feel safe to drop the performance. Do they encourage you privately the same way they do in public? Or do they express doubt, warn you against aiming too high, or suggest you might be changing in a way that's not positive? That kind of subtle undermining isn't concern. It's control dressed up as care. You don't need to call them out every time you notice it. Often, the smartest move is to adjust your distance. Protect your wins, guard your struggles, and stop handing over access to every corner of your life. When you see the mask slip, believe it the first time. Pretending to care is a long-term game for some people. It's how they stay close enough to monitor you while convincing you they're on your side. But the truth always leaks through in small ways, and your job is to collect those signs and trust your read on them. The danger of these people is that they can make you second-guess yourself. You'll wonder if you're being too harsh, too sensitive, or reading into things that aren't there. But you have to remember that real care is consistent. It doesn't shift with your level of success or failure. If their support is conditional, if it fades when you shine or thrives when you stumble, it's not support, that's a performance. The longer you ignore the signs, the deeper they get in your circle, and the more influence they have over how you see yourself. Recognize the patterns early, not because you want to push everyone away, but because you deserve relationships built on truth, not pretense. Some people don't care about you. They care about how caring about you makes them look. They perform concern like it's a play, delivering just enough sympathy to keep up appearances, but never enough to truly stand beside you when it's hard. And the most dangerous thing about them is they're skilled at hiding it. They'll smile, they'll nod, they'll ask how you're doing, but behind the politeness, there's an absence of real investment in your well-being. You can sense it if you pay attention. The questions they ask are shallow, the follow-ups are non-existent, and the moment you're no longer useful to them, their interest evaporates. These are the people who treat relationships like transactions. They're in as long as there's something to gain, and when you see it, you can't ignore it anymore. You notice it when they're there for your celebrations, but vanish in your storms. They post their congratulations in public, but stay silent when you're struggling in private. They're loud when your success benefits their image, but quiet when you need help that won't give them recognition. These are the people who'll stand next to you when the lights are on, but drift into the shadows when the cameras are off. And if you let them, they'll convince you that their surface-level engagement is genuine connection. But real care is not seasonal. It's not selective. It doesn't show up only when it's convenient. And if you have to question it, if you have to convince yourself they mean well, then you already know the truth. Pay attention to the consistency of their presence. It's easy to care when it costs nothing. It's easy to show up when it's fun, light, and full of rewards. But the real test of someone's care is in the unglamorous moments. The nights when you're broken. The times when you're not winning. The days when you have nothing to offer in return. Do they still show up then? Or do they keep a safe distance, sending a quick text to check the concern box, then disappearing again? That pattern will tell you everything. And here's the thing. People who pretend to care are experts at subtle withdrawal. They don't disappear dramatically. They fade out quietly so you barely notice it happening. By the time you do, you've already been standing alone for a while. When you unmask someone who's pretending, you might feel guilt for pulling back. You'll tell yourself maybe they're busy, maybe they mean well, maybe it's not personal. But the truth is, you don't need to chase people into proving they care. Genuine care never needs to be chased. The people who want to be there will find ways to be there. And the ones who don't, you won't need to block them out because they'll filter themselves out when there's nothing left for them to gain. That's not bitterness, that's clarity. And once you see it clearly, you stop mistaking polite performance for love or loyalty. You also have to look at how they react when you set boundaries. People pretending to care often thrive when you're open and giving because it benefits them. But the second you start protecting your energy or saying no, their mask starts to slip. Suddenly they're distant, offended, or passive-aggressive. True care isn't threatened by boundaries, it respects them. But pretenders are only comfortable when the dynamic serves them. The moment it shifts, they show you the truth they've been hiding. That's why boundaries are one of the fastest ways to unmask false care. You don't even need to confront them, you just stop over-giving and watch who sticks around. And finally, you have to understand that not everyone pretending to care is malicious. Some are simply self-absorbed. They may not even realize they're doing it, but the result is the same. You end up pouring into someone who only sips when it's convenient. That's why unmasking isn't about calling them out. It's about calling yourself into awareness. You don't need a dramatic confrontation to protect yourself. You just need to shift where your energy goes. Stop giving your best to people who give you their leftovers. Stop confusing occasional check-ins with true support. Real care is consistent, selfless, and present. Anything less is just a costume. When people pretend to care, they often leave behind a trail of small inconsistencies that reveal their true intentions. One of the most telling signs is that their support is situational. They are present when things are easy, convenient, or beneficial for them. But when the circumstances demand sacrifice, time, or effort, they quietly fade into the background. You'll notice that their attention comes with conditions. When you're winning, they celebrate loudly, but when you're struggling, they are mysteriously absent. They may check in when they have an audience or when it can be used to position themselves as a good friend or concerned supporter. But when you need them behind closed doors, the energy is gone. Genuine care does not need a spotlight. It works in silence without expecting acknowledgement. When someone only shows up for the performance of caring, but disappears when the curtain falls, they are revealing that their connection to you is based on optics, not on genuine loyalty. This is why you have to pay attention not only to what people say, but to how they act when there is nothing to gain. True support is proven in the shadows, not in the spotlight. Another sign is the imbalance between their words and actions. People who pretend to care are often fluent in comforting phrases, telling you they're always here, or that they worry about you. But when the moment comes for them to demonstrate that concern, their behavior does not align. They may avoid your calls when you're in crisis or make excuses to sidestep uncomfortable situations where you truly need them. This inconsistency creates confusion because you're left questioning if their earlier words were genuine or simply a way to maintain the appearance of compassion. The truth is, real care is less about what someone says in moments of calm and more about what they do in moments of chaos. You should not have to beg someone to stand beside you if their care is authentic. People who pretend to care will often give you just enough kindness to keep the illusion alive, but never enough to be truly dependable. The gap between their language and their behavior is where their real character is exposed. Pretending to care often comes with subtle self-centeredness. You'll notice they manage to redirect conversations back to themselves, even when you're sharing something deeply personal. They might use your struggles as a backdrop to talk about their own experiences or subtly shift the focus so they can be seen as wise, insightful, or relatable. This isn't about mutual exchange. It's about keeping the attention on them while appearing as though they are there for you. True caring involves listening fully, without trying to take the stage, but those who fake it cannot help but insert themselves into your narrative. Sometimes they even store the details you've shared, so they can bring them up later in a way that benefits them, whether it's to gain sympathy, leverage, or validation from others. This behavior reveals that their concern is a tool, not a gift, and that they are more invested in the role they play than in the reality of your well-being. The subtle manipulation of guilt is another weapon used by those who pretend to care. They may remind you of past instances where they helped you, sometimes exaggerating or framing it in a way that makes you feel indebted. They use this as a shield against being called out for their absence in times of need. You'll hear lines like, "Remember when I was there for you?" or "After everything I've done," as if care is a transaction that requires repayment. This transactional mindset is the opposite of genuine care, which does not keep score. Real support is given freely without the expectation of constant acknowledgement or emotional debt. But pretenders make sure you remember their contributions, often bringing them up at moments when you're least able to challenge them, reinforcing a sense of obligation that keeps you tied to them even when you're starting to see the cracks in their sincerity. There's also the tendency for them to vanish when your truth becomes uncomfortable. Pretenders prefer a sanitized version of your struggles, something that is easy to digest, that doesn't require them to confront their own discomfort or be involved in messy realities. When the situation demands long-term commitment or when the truth challenges their worldview, they distance themselves under the guise of needing space or not knowing how to help. The reality is, they don't want to help if it means getting their hands dirty. They only engage when they can manage the narrative and maintain their image as a caring presence. But the moment your reality threatens that image, they retreat, leaving you to face the hard parts alone. Their avoidance is not about boundaries. It's about preserving the illusion that they are supportive, without doing the work that true support requires. Finally, people who pretend to care often rely on the currency of public perception. They make their support visible to others because the recognition fuels their need to be seen as compassionate. They might post about you on social media, tell mutual acquaintances how much they worry about you, or attend visible events in your life, but only if those actions are likely to be noticed. In private, their involvement is minimal, but in public, they are champions of your cause. This is why it's so important to measure care not by the moments others can witness, but by the quiet, unseen efforts that happen when no one else is watching. Real care doesn't require applause. It's steady, consistent, and reliable, whether or not the world is paying attention. The people who genuinely have your back will be there in the silent spaces, showing up when it's inconvenient, unglamorous, and unacknowledged, because their care is not a performance. It's part of who they are. Some people will speak words that sound sweet, but if you listen closely, there's no nourishment in them, only emptiness. Pretenders often operate like that. They'll use the language of care, but their actions betray their real intentions. They will call you friend, yet disappear when you are in need. They will say, "I'm proud of you," yet their tone drips with envy when you accomplish something. They will stand beside you in moments of celebration because being near your light makes them feel important. But in your moments of struggle, they will vanish into the shadows. This is why you cannot measure someone's care by their words alone. Words are cheap. Actions are expensive. When someone truly cares, they invest in you with consistency, not convenience. They show up when it's uncomfortable, when it costs them time, when it gains them nothing in return. If they only appear when it benefits them, their care is nothing but a costume they wear to play a role in your life. True care is tested in adversity. When the storms hit, masks fall. It's in those moments you will see who is real and who is only pretending. The ones who care will not always have the perfect words, but they will be present. They will check in without you asking. They will offer help without waiting for you to beg. And they will not make your pain about them. Pretenders, on the other hand, will avoid you because your hardship disrupts their comfort. They will offer platitudes from a distance or avoid the subject entirely because being confronted with your struggle reminds them of their own lack of depth. They prefer the easy version of you, the smiling, winning version, because it requires no sacrifice on their part. There's also another sign. When people only care in public. Pretenders thrive on the optics of compassion. They will make grand gestures when others are watching so they can be seen as supportive, kind, and loyal. But when the audience disappears, so does their effort. This is why you must watch not just what people do, but when they do it. Real care doesn't need an audience. It exists in the quiet moments, in the private sacrifices, in the unseen acts that no one else will ever hear about. If someone only treats you well when others are around, they are not caring for you. They are managing their image, and here's the hard truth. Sometimes these pretenders are not strangers, but people you've trusted for years. You will want to excuse their absence, rationalize their selfishness, and tell yourself they love you in their own way. But you cannot keep giving people credit for intentions they never act on. You cannot keep accepting crumbs from those who could give you bread but choose not to. Caring is a choice, and if they consistently choose themselves over you in moments that matter, then their care is a lie. Accepting this truth is painful, but it will free you from expecting loyalty from those incapable of giving it. Pay close attention to how you feel after being around them. Real care leaves you feeling safe, valued, and seen. Pretend care leaves you doubting yourself, questioning your worth, and wondering why their love feels conditional. Your body will often recognize the truth before your mind does. You'll feel a subtle tension, a sense that you cannot be fully yourself, a pressure to keep them comfortable rather than being real about your own needs. Those are signs that the care you're receiving is an illusion. You owe it to yourself to unmask these people. Not to confront them in anger, but to adjust your expectations and protect your energy. Once you stop expecting depth from the shallow, you stop drowning in disappointment. You learn to reserve your trust for those who have earned it through consistent action. You learn to measure care by the sacrifices people make when no one is looking, not the pretty words they speak when everyone is watching. And you learn that it's far better to have a small circle of the genuine than a large crowd of pretenders, because at the end of the day, the ones who truly care will not need to convince you. They will prove it through the way they show up for you, again and again, without needing applause,